Live from the podcast studio, this is from Long Distance Marriage with Rich and Andrea. We're a once long-distance couple who closed 5,000 miles of distance and are now happily married.
We talk long-distance, marriage and relationships.
Hi everyone, welcome to episode 58 of From Long Distance to Marriage. It's that weird time between Christmas and New Year. We hope you all had a great festive period. But on the topic of New Year, that's kind of going to be our focus sort of for this episode, and that it's that time of year when people are looking to make plans for the coming year, New Year's resolutions, vision boards, and all kinds of stuff. I think everyone gets, I wouldn't say suckered in, but gets caught up in that kind of mindset at this time of year, wouldn't you think? Mm-hmm. So what we wanted to talk about is the kind of resolutions that you can set as a couple for your relationship, whether that's long distance or not. You might find that choosing to work on something together as a couple will yield better results because you've got kind of each other to hold one another accountable. So, I mean, there's a lot of things you could do. It could be focus on your sex life, to try new things once a week, or to have sex more often, whatever that is. It could be going out on dates more. There's any number of things. But I think there's three that we really wanted to focus on.
Well, before we get into this, on New Year's Day, we'll send out an email with 10 things to sort of be aware of, areas that are potential improvement in a relationship. So that'll be going out to everyone on our email list. So if you're not already signed up to receive those, if you visit our website, longdistancetomarriage.com, get on the list, and we'll send it out to you on New Year's Day.
So you might find something in there that you want to work on as a couple, or just individually as a part of a couple, as one part of a relationship. So the first one is probably the one that Rich is most, I wouldn't say passionate about, but one that you kind of take the driver's seat in our relationship, and I get on board with it and kind of support you. And that's kind of managing your finances as a couple. And we talked a lot about that, but we had an entire episode for it, which was episode 27. So do you want to kind of give some insight on why that's one that you wanted to talk about a lot in this episode?
Yeah, because first and foremost, money can often just be a cause of stress and worry for people individually and in a relationship. We talk to couples, and a lot of people, I wouldn't say everyone's got their own way of doing it. There tend to be a sort of a number of ways that people would stick to, but that's if whatever way you're doing it that works for you is fine. But the problem is a lot of couples kind of do nothing. There's no monitoring of spending. You know, we know of couples who don't know what each other earns, or if you don't know what the spending is, you haven't got any. We're big advocates of having spending money individually, so we go through our joint finances, we have savings worked out, we have the joint bills worked out, but then we also allow ourselves what we call a discretionary spending sums every month. You know, we both have jobs, so we kind of think it's fair that we have some money for ourselves as well. And it just means that if either one of us buys something, there's no questions, there's no arguments over it, everything else is taken care of, and that's our money to do what we want with. But I think going into the New Year is a really good time to sort of, if money is an issue or you think it's something that could be improved, then it's the obvious sort of time to address it. Yeah. It doesn't have to be budgets. I mean, we keep a, we don't look at it a lot, but we have a spreadsheet just so we can see what our commitments are, and it's got, you know, our salaries in it, and we can just see at a glance, this is what our commitments are every month. In the past, we've had sort of money meetings where we'd just catch up and say, next month's going to be tough for us because we've got this unusual expense, you know, car repair or whatever, and you know, we'd just touch base with each other and say where we're at, and sometimes it may be inevitable that you go into your overdraft or you put something on your credit card, but it just keeps you on the same page. So episode 27 was all about that, and we go into detail on how we personally set up our finances, how we manage the accounts, joint accounts, savings, personal spending, and reasons why you want to do it. And I think the start of the year is just a good time to maybe, you know, tidy up.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of reasons that might be important. You know, maybe you've got a big expenditure coming up. Maybe you're getting married. Maybe, you know, there's...
Or maybe just trying to get out of debt.
Maybe trying to get out of debt, student loans, trying to save up to buy a house. But it's, you know,
But I think there's also ego in it, that you've come from, if you've been individual, you know, if you've been single for a long time, or you're managing your own money, now you're kind of pooling resources, and it's not always easy to let someone else in on what you're earning, what you're spending, and maybe you have to have conversations about, you know, we can't afford all of this, we're going to have to make some sacrifices and things. So it's not always an easy conversation, and I think money, possibly more than most other things, people are really reluctant to talk about, more likely to bury our head in the sand, especially with other, you know, people outside of the relationship as well.
Yeah, but that's an excellent point. There's just no room for ego in relationships. Like, you can't really, you got to address what's what, and finances are a reality, so you need to keep that kind of emotion or pride set aside. But like I was saying, it's just kind of a good time to start being mindful about your finances as a fresh start. A lot of like tax stuff is either finishing or gearing up, depending what country you live in. But yeah, you can set aside time to actually put a plan together. If it is trying to get out of debt, okay, how are you going to do that? Get on the same page. If it is saving up for a wedding or for a house deposit or whatever, what's that look like? Not just like, yeah, we need to be better with money. And that's what a lot of couples do. And that's what we did for a long time. Like, oh yeah, and we still do it in some ways. You know, we're going to be better with this. Unless you actually have a plan that looks like we're going to put X money aside every month into this account, and we don't touch it unless A, B, C, D happens, or whatever that plan looks like for you. Just write out a plan like you would for any big thing. You know,
it always amazes me that the amount of people who don't really know what they're earning. So you may know your salary, your annual salary, but not necessarily what that looks like as take-home pay month on month, especially if you've got, you know, there are deductions before it hits your bank account, like tax. Over here we pay national insurance. Maybe you've got a pension contribution and a healthcare contribution, and yes, the amount of money that actually hits your bank account month on month is obviously a different number to your annual salary. And if you don't know what that monthly figure is, or you don't know if and how and why it might fluctuate from one month to the next, then the reality is you're never going to really get a grip on your finances, because you've already fallen at the first hurdle of just knowing how much you have. And then once you know what you have, you might have an idea in your mind that you want to save 10% of your earnings. Well, you can only know you're saving 10% when you know what you're earning. You know, and then that's kind of has to be the first step, is figure out what you're earning. If you want to discuss it together, what your collective earnings are. You know, do you want to have a savings goal together, and do you want to contribute a certain percentage towards that, or a particular amount towards that? Because so if you say I want to save 10-20%, the actual number, the monetary figure, can be quite scary. To actually, that's more than I thought, but we can make it work. Or it may turn out it's actually not nearly as much as you thought, and you can double it or treble it. But you have to just know the starting point before you can hope to get anywhere, and then you've obviously got your bills on top of that, you know, all your necessary outgoings, and you need to have some money just tucked away for a rainy day, for something going wrong, as it inevitably does. And you need to have fun money. And if you're still long distance, then you know you're probably still saving up money or spending a lot of money travelling to see each other. Visas cost money. If you're looking to get your first place together, that costs money. Everything costs money, so you just need to know what you've got. And especially if anywhere in the near future you're planning on letting someone else look at your finances, like a mortgage advisor or a broker, or someone who's saying, can you afford this mortgage that you want? You know, you need to make sure that your numbers are in order.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, yeah, that's a really good one. And it doesn't have to be only if you've got big things coming or you're in debt. It's just good. I think people can be really afraid to look up close at their finances, because it is kind of like, oh shit, I don't want to know what I've spent, or I don't want to see how little I have.
When it's also like, it's one of those topics that's just, everyone's kind of collectively awkward about it, and there's sort of this safety in numbers that, oh, everyone's in their overdraft, everyone's in debt, you laugh it off, but it doesn't have to be that way. And you know, we say in episode 27 about this that we automate as much as we can, and then you really, yeah, okay, it might take a little bit of time up front, but you really just do it once. You set it, you forget it, you check in just to see what the numbers are. If your salary changes, or every year when we get the insurance renewals, the numbers change a little bit. We update that spreadsheet, but it's not something we look at every day. It's not like every time we go and buy a bottle of Coke, we keep the receipt and log it somewhere. We don't treat our money that way. We put the time in up front to have this spreadsheet. It's got all of our income and outgoings on it. That allowed us to automate how much we pay ourselves, and the bills are all set up on automatic payments. So it all just takes care of itself, and then we just know where we're at. But that spreadsheet is available, so we can look at it whenever we need to or want to. And if we decide that we've got a new savings goal, we can make adjustments when we need to.
Yeah. So it's definitely a good one to think about if you want to work on some stuff as a couple in the new year.
And just to add to that before we move on as well, I think is once you get it done, I think money's such a big, important one that people put off for such a long time that you'll feel really, really good. It's a really, it's a quick win for the new year. Like if you go into January, you get this done, you've started off your year already feeling like you've tackled something really, really important.
Yeah, and it's not a romantic resolution. We'll be completely honest with that, but it could.
It can be. If you say in there, we're gonna.
Let me finish. It can lead to more romance, but as I've said before, like a lot of times being a couple is like running a business, and this is one of the necessary evils of that. But again, what I think you were going to say, and you can butt in now if I'm wrong, that you can budget. Okay, well, $100 or £100 a month, whatever, is for us to go out and do a breakfast date.
Or if you just have a savings goal, maybe you'll say, look, in a year we're going to go on a trip to Venice together, and this is a dedicated savings account, and we can watch that grow. Like, just something to incentivize you.
It doesn't. I think when we started doing this, it really stressed me out because I think we started doing it at a time when money was a very, very. It's a stressful topic for everyone, but at the time it was a very stressful topic for us.
Yeah, I don't know, having like a money meeting can feel a bit formal and like, am I under pressure here? Have I got to justify my spending? And it's not. It shouldn't be like that.
No, it was never like that.
Every couple's maybe your partner may feel a little bit domineering or under pressure, but it should just be we're just checking in. Where are we at? And at the end of the day, we earn our own money and we give ourselves our own spending money, but we've both had times in the past where there is a credit card balance or whatever, and we'll say, okay, well, look, we'll take care of that together because it's for our shared life and future. And, so it's not necessarily that your debt is your debt and you're on your own with it. It's okay, I can help you with that. And then that'll take 2 months. And then after that, we're going to put X amount into this savings account. And so, yeah, it is a bit of a business scenario, but it's an important one, and I think ultimately you should feel a lot closer from it too, because it's one of those things that really puts you in that mindset of being a team.
Yeah, it makes you work together. And also, we don't really do those money meetings monthly. We're in a position where, we talked about our goals, back when we started doing this, what we wanted to achieve, how much we thought we each wanted for fun money each month, what the bills exactly were. And then for a couple months, maybe about 5 or 6 months, we sat down every month right around the same date and worked together, talked about it. And then, like you said, we automated a lot.
It was in the calendar. We made it important. So we put it in the diary. It's okay, this Friday we're sitting down, and we would say, that gave us time to prepare individually. So, okay, yeah, I need to look at my money. I need to bring this up. We need to talk about that. Rather than just being, hey, let's talk about money now. Yeah. And then neither of you are in the mindset for it. And, so just...
But once you're in the rhythm of working towards whatever it is you decide that you're going to work towards, it does, and you automate as much as you can in terms of payments and transactions and savings. It's not something you have to do every month. And you can, now we check in anytime bill amounts change, our salaries, go up, then we sit down and talk about it, look at it. What are we doing with that extra money? We've got to make up for this. It's gone up. And then that's it, really. And then we catch up now and then, and it's much more relaxed. Mm-hmm. So that's that one. And that, again, is episode 27, Money Management for Couples. So that's quite a long episode, about an hour and a half. But
we go deep.
We do.
But it should be one that if you listen to that, by the end of that episode, you will feel, hopefully, empowered and like what to do. We wanted to make it an episode not where it's just, you should do this, and then you go away feeling guilty and, I've got to figure it all out. I think we kind of said everything that you would need to get going.
Hopefully. And also, it's really good listen if you are about to be moving in together or getting married or whatever stage when you start kind of joining up your finances. I think it's a good episode to get prepared for that.
And even if you've already done this and you feel like it's not necessary, we go into detail of just the way we do it, and it's not the only way to do it. We know plenty of couples that don't do it the way we do it, but it does work for us. So probably worth a listen just to see if you like the sound of how we do it and if it worked for you.
Yeah. So that was suggested resolution, inspiration, number 1. Number 2 is working on how you communicate with one another in your relationship. And while we talk about communication and how important it is and how we try to work on it in pretty much every episode, because it does tie back to everything, we do have episode 22, which is how to improve communication in relationships. So it's one of those things that people tell you constantly, like, oh, you just need to communicate better. You need to talk to each other. So this is a tricky one. If you want to get better at communicating with each other, you're going to have to just start communicating. And so it's kind of a tricky one to get started on. But if you know that you guys struggle as a couple, or one of you struggles more than the other, you're going to have to take that first step.
Well, there are 2 components to it. And one of them is you have to have a good look at yourself, do a self-audit and think, how do I phrase things? Do I come across aggressive or patronising? And it's happened to me in the past where the feedback you get isn't necessarily how you perceive yourself to be, but obviously if enough people think it, then that must be the way it is.
Feedback from me?
Well, generally, if someone says, "Oh, you were really aggressive," well, I didn't mean to be. If they felt like you were, then it's not conducive to the conversation. So you need to just be. Part 1 is be mindful of how you communicate, because you can very easily shut people down or cause an argument when they're all guns blazing. Equally, you don't want to be so passive that you just become a doormat. So you need, it's finding that right balance. But part 2 of it is paying attention to how the receiving person interprets things. Maybe they're very defensive, maybe they're very aggressive. You need to think, how do I phrase this? And if it's an important topic, and you don't want it to be an arguments never really solve anything, you just need to think, take some time before the conversation, think, what am I going to say? How are they likely to react to that? Can I say it in a different way? Because it's not so much what it's how you phrase it, it's the tone you deliver it, it's the words you use, but you're still giving the same message. And I know a lot of people like to talk about the 5 love languages, and we've done an episode on that early on. I'm not sure what number it was, but
I think it was 4.
And they're kind of good, but I think when in the broader context, I think there's a potential for them to be used as a bit of a cop out. So if they say, "Oh, well, my love language is," or their love language is receiving gifts, is that one?
Yeah.
So I bought them this. Yeah, that's great, but you still have to know how to talk to each other. You can't just say, well, they like to receive things, so I did this for them. And that means I haven't got to have the awkward conversation about whatever. You still have to have the communication skills as the foundation. And then the 5 love languages are more about building from that. They shouldn't be the be-all and end-all of how you communicate.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to, it's really tricky to decide, choosing this one as a resolution that you want to be better at communicating as a couple, because there's so much that goes into that. But I think what you need to do is take a step back and look at what the end picture is. Like, what does that look like to you? Does that mean that if you're long distance, does it mean that you talk a certain amount of times a week? If you're together, does that mean you want to be more patient when you're expressing your frustration about something? Does it mean that you just want them to work on something that you find hurtful when you're trying to, whatever it is? I think look at and talk together about what you want your relationship to look like and what parts of communication and refining that are going to help you get there, and then work from that spot.
Yeah, I know one of the big ones for us was I don't generally like to just mention things that irritate me as they happen, so I'd end up storing quite a lot of stuff up, and then it would end up in a big everything coming out all at once, and then you always felt like you were caught off guard, and I didn't know this stuff was bothering you, and so you wanted me to just sort of say things as they would happen.
Yeah, I'm regretting that now.
Yeah,
no.
But that's something I had to work on consciously, and I suppose it's kind of like letting just pressure build up, and it's inevitable that it's going to come out eventually, and it's going to be a bigger issue, and if you can just sort of keep things ticking over.
And I think you both need to be really realistic in setting up this resolution together if you're going to choose to improve your communication, because, you know, your expectations might look like one thing, and really, you know, we're all human. I think we all have instances where we say something and we're human and it just comes out, and you don't mean for it to come out that way, or you think that the person understands what you're saying and you come out condescending or whatever it is, and they take it a completely different way. And it's really hard because the last thing you wanted to do was hurt them, and to an extent feelings can't be wrong. You know, maybe people are feeling a bit hypersensitive and they're overreacting. That does happen. But if someone takes something a certain way, you can't undo that. That's how they took that action. But in the moment you didn't mean it. Or didn't mean it that way. So suddenly, you know, everything you say, you sometimes you can feel like you have to think about your tone so carefully, because anything you can will do. What is it? Anything can and will be used against you in a court of law. So, you know, be realistic and you know, don't set such strict standards that you're setting yourselves up to fail, I think is what I'm trying to say. You know, and be patient with each other and be patient with yourselves, because this is one that I think we've gotten to a point where we accept that, like, when it comes to communication, we are going to be working on this for our entire lives. And yes, we've gotten much better. We still have moments, you know, where we just, the understanding gets twisted, or the meaning gets twisted, or something just gets taken the wrong way, or we just say something really badly, you know.
And sometimes you're just in a bad fucking mood.
Or sometimes you just don't think. You know, like, it's really hard. And I can't think what it must be like for parents, because, yes, well, everything I say and do will affect your mood for the most part in some way, and vice versa. We are both adults, and we are, at the end of the day, responsible for our own feelings. And if you do something to upset me, or I do something to upset you, whatever, it's the other person's job to, emotionally responsibly express that. And that doesn't look like throwing a shit fit. You hurt my feelings. Blah, blah, blah. Like, sometimes that happens, but you need to find a conducive way to do that. Like, hey, you just said this to me, and this is how it makes me feel, and that's why it's not okay. That's really fucking hard to do in the moment. I think I'm just trying to stress to people how big of one this is. Don't feel defeated if it's not getting fixed right away, because if you're just even a little bit more mindful and you're just trying, that is better than whatever it was before. So I think for this one, strive for improvement. Don't strive for perfection. I think with the finances, that's numbers. That's, you know, that's science. You know, you can do that.
Yeah.
X will lead to Z will lead to da-da.
But this can also change from one partner to the next. So don't be thinking, well, I always used to talk to my ex like this, and he or she was fine about it, so this is your problem. Like, everyone needs to be spoken to slightly differently. Absolutely.
And that's part of a relationship, learning that. We are still learning that. And, you know, sometimes you'll do something and you genuinely won't see a problem with what you said or what you did, because it didn't come with any malice behind it, but it really will fucking hurt the other person. And you have to take a step back, swallow whatever you want to spit back. And it's fair to communicate, hey, that's not what I meant, and I don't want you to take it that way, but I'm sorry you did. And I can see where, you know, whatever it looks like. So I think that's probably
number two.
Number two. So yeah, again, if you want more kind of focused tips on, you know, making your communication, your relationship better, you can listen to episode 22, How to Improve Communication in Relationships. And then number 3 is, I think, a really important one, and one that we, again, are still kind of working at, and that's being intentional in your relationship. And there's an entire episode on that, which is number 18. Do you want to tell people what that means, being intentional in your relationship?
It's just being thoughtful and...
Sorry, did I take you off guard?
A little bit.
Sorry. Do you want me to do it?
It's just making time for each other and planning ahead a little bit, and not always being caught up in the moment. And, you know, there's things like, we say this all the time, but when you move in together or you get married, so many people think that's the end, and it's not, it's the beginning. So still have time for dates and courtship, to be formal about it. You know, it's just about making sure the other person still knows what they mean to you, and that you still love each other, and because life can just take you where it wants to if you let it.
Yeah, and I think a really good way to look at this is not just letting your relationship take a back seat, and not expecting everything to work itself out, because sometimes that's true in life, that everything will work out, but maybe not as good as it would if you put a bit more effort into it. And so I think some people might assume, oh, we've gotten married, or we've moved in together, or we've done whatever big thing it is. Now everything's going to be great. You know, the relationships that that came out so weird. The relationships that you see, that you admire, and the people who have really beautiful connection with their partner, you know, there's no buts about it, that they put work into that, and they've had to come through some shit and work on some stuff to get to that point.
Well, I think as well, the analogy, we may have used it in that episode, I'm not sure, but the good analogy is that, you know, when you look at, say, someone really good at what they do, you know, a sports champion, or you know, an Olympic athlete, or a really successful actor, like anyone who's really, really successful in their field, doesn't have to be famous, I'm just saying that as you're more likely to know who they are. You know, we look at them and we see the really, really quick rise to fame they have. You might think, oh, they're blessed. Why are you looking at that?
So remember where it's from. It's in the guide.
Okay. Our ultimate guide to long distance relationships,
which you should buy.
Little plug. But you know, yeah. So we see their really sort of sudden prominence, and we see how good they are, and we think, you know, they're really good at it. But we don't see the years of early mornings, late nights, constant practice and learning and training, and the sacrifices, the time spent away from friends and family, like all the hours that's gone into it, and the failures that have gone into it. And it's the same thing with the couples. I think everyone knows at least one couple that you look up to and say that they're a real inspirational couple. And when it comes to relationships, I think maybe the rom-coms have really conditioned people to think it's just about compatibility. And when you find the right one, everything's rosy and fantastic forever, and you know, the reality is it's not. They're going to argue and see each other at their worst, and without makeup in the mornings, and not feeling well, and in a bad mood, and all that kind of stuff. And the people that really, one, make it a long time, but two, become inspirations to other people, the ones that were just willing to persevere and be intentional with their times, the ones who are able to say, okay, yeah, I don't particularly like you today, but I do still love you, and I want to get through this. And you know, and they just did whatever it took to go from the failures and everything, and they made whatever sacrifices were necessary to reach that point, because the relationship meant enough to them.
Yeah, and I think with being intentional, it's being open with each other about what you need to feel connected and happy, and what they need to feel that way, and then working together to make sure those things happen. And, you know, sometimes that may feel like you're not being spontaneous, but intention is kind of the opposite of spontaneous. That doesn't mean that you can't be spontaneous.
You know, the intentionality can be, all right, this weekend we will have a date. It doesn't mean what you do has to be planned. You can think, all right, we'll decide on the day what we'll do.
Oh, yeah, totally. All I meant was that it doesn't just happen. You have to make it happen.
No, it doesn't. And I think, you know, think of, this will be different for everyone, but think of your favourite actor or musician or sports person or whatever, and you know, you see them on the big stages, the big films, but what you don't see is them at drama school, or getting booed by, you know, an unreceptive crowd, or losing a game, maybe missing the shot that would have won, you know, and all those little failures and disappointment of everyone around them. But they didn't say, okay, it's not for me, I'm not good enough. They got up the next day and they did it again, and the same can be applied to relationships very easily. You know, so, well, we had an argument and that's it, we're done. Or they did this that upset me and now I want nothing to do with them. It's fine, everyone will have their own point. Cheating is an obvious one where a lot of people say that's enough for me. But, you know, I'm generally speaking, it's, you know, there are going to be times for everyone where maybe we're not as thoughtful as we would like to be, and we let the people around us down. But it doesn't mean you walk away.
Yeah, and this is another one that you're going to have to work at, and it's not just one that you can kind of do once and then it's done. You're going to have to work at it consciously throughout the year, throughout your relationship.
And it's going to involve swallowing pride as well.
Yeah, but I think a good way to get started on this is to talk about it and say, you know, this year I'm gonna be working on this, and maybe you'd like to as well, and then go away and talk about it. You know, this is what I'd like more of, this is what makes me feel like you're being intentional, blah, blah. Then each of you go away and make a list of the things that you're going to start doing as a couple or for one another. You know, maybe that means making sure the dishwasher's done when she gets home from work. Maybe that's making sure there's a cold beer waiting for him on the coffee table when he gets home from work. Maybe that's taking her away every 6 months for a dirty weekend. You know, whatever that means. Make your list, because I really think there's truth in writing things down. It's almost like it magics it into the real world out of your mind. And if you've written it down, there's physical proof that that's what you want and it's what you're going to do. And it's more likely to happen, but you still need to follow through. But I think being intentional in your relationship just shows so much more appreciation. It shows the thought behind, you know, I wanted to do this for you or for us or whatever it is. And it can make a huge difference in your relationship. And there are times when one of us or both of us will put more effort in on being intentional, and it doesn't take much or long for that to be reflecting kind of in how happy we are together, don't you think? Mm-hmm. It's an instant payoff. It's another easy win, but you got to put it in motion and plan it. So lastly, just really quickly, unless you have anything to add on that one, just want to say if you know, if you're thinking you'd like to talk to your partner about doing a New Year's resolution as a couple, if you're a little bit nervous about how they might react, because again, people might think that, oh, you're not happy, or you're saying I do shit at this or whatever, just again, here's a communication tip if you're going with resolution number 2. Just say, hey, you know, I'm putting some things together for myself that I want to work on in 2020, and one of those things that I want to do is make our relationship even better. Would you like to work on something together with me? Would you like to choose something that we do as a couple, and make more effort with, or change or whatever? And just do it that way. Totally no pressure. Take it on yourself. I want to do this. I'm already planning to do some things for myself, whether that's hitting the gym or meditating or whatever it is. You know, resolutions should always be to enrich our lives. And why can't they do that for your relationship? So just make sure you broach it in a way that's judgment-free and all positive, not, hey, we suck at this and you suck more, so let's fix it. How would you respond if I said that? Probably not very well.
Yeah, probably.
I wouldn't either. So yeah, I think that is it. Is there anything else? Is there anything to update on the guide?
The guides? No. Well, for the next 2 days, until the end of the year, so the next 2 days, we have done it on a pay whatever you want for it. So you can give us a penny, you can give us 1,000,000 pennies, but we just, as a little Christmas gift to everyone, and as a thank you, we've taken away the price for it, so you can get it for whatever you would like to get it for.
Yeah, but that's only until December 31st at midnight.
It's to the end of the year.
Yeah. So if you're listening in 2020, sorry, but you're too late.
So if you want that, just go to our website, longdistancetomarriage.com, click on the resources page, and the link is in there. That's the only update for it, though. Yeah.
If there's anything you'd like for us to talk about in the new year, please let us know. You can message us on our socials or through the website to drop anything you'd like to hear us talk about or any questions you have. And we wish you all a happy and prosperous 2020.
Indeed.
Thank you.